The year is 1996. Bill Clinton wins his second presidential election. The Dallas Cowboys win their third Super Bowl in 4 years. A blizzard dumps 36 inches of snow on Philly and closes New York City public schools for the first time in 18 years. Mel Gibson's Braveheart wins 5 Academy Awards. The Unabomber Ted Kaczynski is finally arrested. Michael Jordan leads the Chicago Bulls to their fourth championship. Tupac is fatally wounded in a drive-by shooting. The Summer Olympics are held in Atlanta. But how was it for horror movies? Stick around and find out.
You're afraid of dying.
How do you know? You've never tried it before.
All right, all you lovely people, as you saw, My Life in Horror, episode 7, the year is 1996. This is an amazing year for horror. I'm really excited to talk about this one. I've been waiting on this one because my favorite horror movie of all time came out this year. And another one of my top 10 came out this year as well. So we're not going to waste any time except to say like button, subscribe button, this button, that, all YouTube algorithm buttons. Hit them if you would. Really has helped me out. With that out of the way, let's jump right into these. All right, we're going to start this week a little different. We're actually going to start with the notable mentions just to get them out of the way, because once we start talking about the other categories, we're going to be on some similar movies all the way through. So as I said, we're going to start with notable mentions. Our first notable mention for the year 1996 is The Craft. Now, this is one, is it horror? Isn't it? I think it fits enough that it's going to be in the category just fine for me. This movie is, first of all, it's a great movie, but it's got a lot of notable faces in it for the time. Fairuza Balk, specifically, she was very notorious for me, and I know her most from The Waterboy with Adam Sandler, but great movie, great outing for her. It's also got Robin Tunney, Rachel True. It's got Christine Taylor. And it's got two other people in the movie that we're definitely going to talk about again this year. And that's a guy named Skeet Ulrich and a woman named Neve Campbell. Don't know where they're going to come back up, but I got a feeling, we're going to talk about them again. So the first notable mention for 1996 is The Craft. And the second notable mention for the year 1996 is Hellraiser Bloodline. I'm going to be honest, I don't even know what number in the Hellraiser franchise this is. I just know, terrible it is to say, it's the one where Pinhead goes to space. Yes, Pinhead goes to space in this one. I know it's got a very early outing by a young Adam Scott in one of his first production roles, first movie roles. Pinhead goes to space. There's a long time jump between some Renaissance time in France versus the year 2100 or something like that on the space station. Essentially, this dude designs a freaking space station to work as a trap for Pinhead, and it ends with them essentially locking this spaceship or space station, transitions into this big cube, and locks Pinhead inside with all his people in perpetual light, which kills Pinhead somehow. It's not a great movie, but you do still have Douglas Bradley as Pinhead. You got a young Adam Scott in there. It's not the worst one of the Hellraiser movies, but it's not great. But it is worth mentioning, so there you go. My number 2 pick for notable mentions for 96 is Hellraiser Bloodlines. And my third and final honorable mention for 1996 is another space one. It's Leprechaun 4 in space. That's literally what it's called. Fucking Leprechaun 4 in space. Now, what do you say about this movie? I love Leprechaun. I've made that abundantly clear the last few episodes of this series. I do love Leprechaun. This one is no exception. It's terrible. It's awful, but I love it. However, there are a lot of good movies that came out in '96, so it doesn't make my top 3. But it's Warwick Davis as a leprechaun in space trying to woo a space princess. What do you got to do? What are you gonna do? It's worth mentioning because it's Leprechaun. It's a long-running series. I wanted to throw it out there. So my number 3 notable mention for 1996 is Leprechaun 4. And our next category, we're going to look at highest grossing of 1996. And with the third entry in the highest grossing of 1996 is a movie called The Frighteners. Haven't heard of this? Definitely go check it out. It's a wonderfully odd movie. It's directed by Peter Jackson. Stars Michael J. Fox along with some other good characters. Arlie Ermey's in it. I love him in everything he does. essentially about communicating with ghosts and being a con man and a bunch of different stuff. I'm not going to go into too much about it other than that. It's an interesting movie. Definitely go check it out. If you love Michael J. Fox, if you like Peter Jackson, check it out. It's worth checking out. But it grossed $29.3 million in 1996, earning it the number 3 spot for highest grossing horror of 1996. And the number 2 spot for highest grossing is a controversial choice. We always got to have one in here. And that's a movie called Mars Attacks. You can very well debate whether or not it's horror. I think it's got enough horror elements to count. It's also got a lot of sci-fi. It's got a decent amount of dark comedy in it. But it's got an all-star cast. It has a freaking all-star cast, y'all. It's got freaking Jack Nicholson, Sarah Jessica Parker's in it, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan, oh god, Danny DeVito is in it. Michael J. Fox is also in this one, I believe. There's so many people in this movie. And essentially, it's exactly what you think it is. Freaking aliens from Mars come down and start attacking the Earth. There you go. That's the movie in a nutshell. Definitely check it out, though. It is hilarious. I think it has enough horror to count, so I'm counting it. And it just jumped way up from the Frighteners, because Frighteners was 29.3 million. Mars Attacks grossed $101.3 million, earning it the second spot on highest grossing of 1996. All right, we've reached the number 1 spot, and the number 1 spot is a movie we're going to talk about a lot today. That goes this little indie film, first-time screenwriter Kevin Williamson, this horror director legend who he had a few misses right before this, but then he comes out with this by the name of Wes Craven. That's right, Scream, the OG Scream, released in 1996. I'm not going to say too much about it right now because we're going to get more into it when we talk about other lists, because believe me, it's showing up more. But it grossed $173 million in 1996, earning it the top spot. Our next category is going to be highest rated. As always, this is based on the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, not the critic score. Bringing in the number 3 spot, just like highest grossing, is going to be The Frighteners. I mean, everything I said about the movie still holds true, obviously. The audience seemed to really dig it because they gave it a 71 out of 100. And the number 2 spot is a movie we haven't talked about yet, but is in my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. And that's going to be From Dusk Till Dawn. Now, I've made it no secret in any way that my favorite director is Quentin Tarantino. Now, I know he didn't direct this, but he did assist in writing it, and he's one of the stars. He does a damn good job. This movie, I remember growing up and thinking, watching this movie and thinking George Clooney's tattoo was the fucking coolest tattoo I'd ever seen. I wanted that for so long. The tattoo that comes out and goes all the way down his arm. Like, it was just pointless, like, American tribal tattoo, but I just loved the look of it so much. Like, the kind of the, I don't even know how to describe it, just the mysteriousness of it peeking up out of his vest or his shirt and you not knowing what it is. I thought that was the coolest thing. Obviously, you got freaking Danny Trejo in here. You got Cheech Marin in here. Oh my God, Juliette Lewis is in here. I'm totally blank. Oh, Salma Hayek. And let's not forget Salma Hayek as if you could. Harvey Keitel. Jesus, that's the name I was trying to think of. Harvey Keitel plays the father of the family. And if you haven't seen it, a quick rundown. These two brothers, the Gecko brothers, played by Quentin Tarantino and George Clooney, are on the run after committing some pretty horrific crimes. They kidnap this family that's in an RV and pretty much tell them, hey, you get us to Mexico and you're going to live. They stop off for the night where they're supposed to meet their criminal assistant, their criminal hookup, at this bar called the Titty Twister. Turns out the Titty Twister is full of vampires, so they got to fight to get out. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It's one of the best vampire movies I've ever seen. It is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And the audience seems to agree. They gave it a 76 out of 100 audience score, earning it the number 2 spot. And the number 1 spot of 1996, surprise, surprise, the highest rated horror movie of 1996 is Scream. That's right. No surprise at all. Scream has a legacy that's lasted until now, and it will not go away. Scream revitalized the slasher subgenre in horror. There's so many movies that came out the end of 1990s, early 2000s, and movies to this day that take cues from Scream. That's how essential it was to horror. That's how iconic it is that even today people or movies use Scream as a basis for their formula, and it still works today. It is still a damn good movie, and it's just a movie that, as I said, this is Kevin Williamson's first screenplay, and it knocked it out of the park. The mix of Kevin Williamson's brilliant writing and Wes Craven's knowledge of horror and amazing directing, uh, along with the performances of everyone involved: Matthew Lillard, Skeet Ulrich, Nev Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Rose McGowan, all of them. Everyone gave a Jamie Kennedy, for the love of God, I cannot forget Randy. People will skewer me. Everyone gave an outrageously good performance in the movie. They played their part to perfection, and there's a reason this movie is as iconic today as it was then, because it's just a damn good movie. And the audience loved it. They gave it an 80 out of 100 audience score, earning it the #1 spot, highest rated horror movie of 1996. All right, everyone, we've come to the final category. I don't think it's any surprise how this is going to play out. However, there is one movie, my #3 movie, that we have not talked about yet, and that's Tremors 2 Aftershocks. Now, Tremors 1, obviously, Fred Ward, Kevin Bacon, amazing movie with the graboids, all that. I don't want to go too much into that because that's not what this is about. But I just want to say, Part 2, I didn't think was too much of a decline from Part 1. I love Aftershock. We didn't get Kevin Bacon back, obviously, but we kind of got a proto Kevin Bacon in the character of Grady. If you haven't seen it, the essential plot is this: Earl, played by Fred Ward again, he does return to reprise his role, is approached by this Mexican oil company who's having a graboid problem, and they pretty much come to him like, hey, we want to hire you to hunt these graboids to, clear out our land. And him and Grady agree to do it. They get down there and they realize they're a little out of their depth, so they hire one Burt Gummer to come help them. And he's once again played by Michael Gross, Burt Gummer will be the only through line from Part 1 all the way to the end, and there are so many. And it's in Part 2 that we learn graboids evolve. There's an entire life cycle of graboids. We've only seen the worms up to this point, but in Part 2 we get shriekers. That's right. After a graboid dies, or I forget the exact, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I forget the exact way it goes down, but a shrieker is born from a graboid, and they walk on two legs. They're really dorky looking, but they eat you, but they shriek, and they make this really loud noise, and that's only the second part of the life cycle. There are more that we'll get to later, but overall, I dig the movie. It's really fun. I like the Tremors series. There are some that are real duds. This one isn't, though. I think this one holds up. So yeah, it's my #3 favorite horror movie of 1996. All right, my #2 favorite horror movie of 1996 is From Dusk Till Dawn. I've already talked about it enough. Quentin Tarantino, freaking Salma Hayek, Harvey Keitel, Juliette Lewis, George Clooney, Cheech Marin, Danny Trejo. I have already forgot Tom Savini's in the movie. Tom Savini's in this movie, plays a guy named Sex Machine, and his weapon is, at one, he's got a freaking whip that he uses at one point, but he also has this crotch-mounted gun that flips up, and it's got 2 cylinders, because it's like a 6-shooter. It's got 2 cylinders right under the barrel that is exactly as phallic as you think it is. But Tom Savini's in the damn movie. And he's the one who gets that old, in a zombie apocalypse or a zombie movie, there's always one person who gets bit and doesn't say anything. This isn't zombies, it's vampires. But Tom Savini is that character. So there you go. My #2 favorite horror movie of 1996 is From Dusk Till Dawn. All right, my #1 favorite horror movie of 1996, I don't think it's any surprise. It's Scream. I still talk about this movie to this day. I still do videos about these movies today. I just made a video about Scream 7 2 hours ago. It's a damn good movie. It's a damn good series. It is my favorite slasher, my favorite horror franchise of all time. I don't think enough good things can be said about Scream. And yeah, it's my #1 favorite horror movie of 1996. I'm not gonna ramble on and on about it. We all know how good it is. But there you go, 1996. Thank you so much, everyone, if you're still here at the end of the video. This came out a little later than I planned on it coming out. Sorry about that. Please do hit that like button and subscribe button if you haven't. We will be back next Saturday with 1997. With that, I love you all. Have a great, safe week.
Oh. I hate goodbyes.